Can everyone hear me? Okay. We do have a sign-in sheet in Carson City and in Las Vegas, both in Las Vegas Hearing Room A and Hearing Room B. So if you have filed comments and wish to speak, make sure you get your name on that list, because I will be calling everyone in alphabetical order based on the list that I have here up at the dais. I need to make sure everyone's aware that we are videotaping this proceeding, as you can tell from all the screens, from Carson City to the Las Vegas Hearing Room. Because of that, we are going to need to keep disruptions at an absolute minimum. They will not be tolerated. No clapping, no outbursts from the crowd, or I will stop the proceeding. I understand there's already been some threats made in Las Vegas amongst certain participants, and I'm informing you that will not be tolerated. This is your only opportunity to provide the commission with feedback. If I have to conclude this proceeding, then you won't be able to. Also, I have a court reporter here in Carson City. The court reporter will be absolutely unable to get your comments down, and they won't be considered by the commission. If there's any disruptions, clapping, people talking over each other, again, that's another reason why I need all of your help to make this proceeding run smoothly. We also have a lot of people, twice as many as last time, that want to comment today. If I'm going to get through everyone needs to be respectful and courteous to everyone else. There will be a 5-minute time limit for comments. There will be a timer that you can see. It will be strictly enforced, and it applies to everyone participating today in this workshop. Otherwise, I'm sure you guys want to spend your evening with me, but it may even be the night if we don't keep this on task today. So I am planning on going all day, as long as it takes so I can hear from everyone. Excuse me, we will be taking breaks every hour and a half or so, but please feel free to get up and come and go as needed, stretch your legs. That's not a disruption I'm talking about. It's more of the outbursts and the, but your ability to move around and be comfortable, I want to make sure everyone takes advantage of that. Also, I have been given copies of some PowerPoint presentations that individuals wanted to do today. However, they are not within the scope of this proceeding, and they will not be allowed. The comments today are solely on the opt-out proposals provided by NV Energy. I have made that very clear in the notice. I've made that very clear to everyone who has called. There is no confusion. So that is what we are talking about today. And if anybody comes up and offers comments that aren't within that scope, I will ask you to sit down. Okay, let's take a couple minutes and then we will go on the record. Keep me on task. Okay, this workshop will come to order. The record will reflect that this is the time and place set before the Public Utilities Commission of Nevada regarding the investigation of NV Energy's Advanced Service Delivery Meter Program, also known as smart meters, and its implementation. This matter was designated by the Commission as docket number 11-10007. Appearing for the Commission today is Nancy Wenzel, Hearings Officer, and Administrative Attorney Deanna Janasi in Carson City. Appearing for the Commission in Las Vegas, we have our Commission Policy Advisors, David Shrez and John Davis, and also Assistant General Counsel Jordan Pinu sitting up at the dais in Las Vegas. Around the table here in Carson City, we have representatives from NV Energy, from our staff, and from BCP. I will go around the table and have them introduce themselves, starting with Mr. Elisegi on my left.
Good morning, Hearing Officer Wenzel. I'm Sean Elisegi with NV Energy and Associate General Counsel.
My name is Gary Smith with NV Energy. I'm the Director of Smart Technologies with the company.
My name is Laura Walsh with NV Energy. I'm the Manager of Regulatory Pricing and Economic Analysis.
And BCP.
My name is Dan Jacobson. I work for the Attorney General's Bureau of Consumer Protection.
I'm David Norris, the attorney assigned to this particular docket for BCP.
And the Commission staff.
Good morning, Hearing Officer Wenzel. My name is Sam Crano. I'm an Assistant Staff Counsel. With me in Carson City is Manny Lopez. He's an economist with Staff's Resource and Market Analysis Division. And there are some staff members down in Las Vegas.
And is there a representative from AARP in Las Vegas?
Yes, there is. This is Barry Gold from AARP Nevada.
Good morning, Mr. Gold. Are you by yourself today?
Actually, I have some of my volunteers in the audience, but I'm by myself and will be the only one speaking. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, the notice of this second request for comments and notice of workshop was made on or about December 22nd, 2011. The Commission has in its files affidavits of publication for the notice of this workshop. Are there any persons present that wish to examine those affidavits or have any concerns related to the notice of this workshop? Okay, seeing none, the Commission deems this matter duly and properly noticed for a workshop at this time and place. A little bit of an overview of what we're going to do today. This workshop is the second of two smart meter workshops. On December 6, 2011, the Commission held its first workshop to address written and reply comments related to smart meter concerns in the areas of health and safety, privacy and security, accuracy and reliability, and customer service as it specifically relates to notification, installation, and NV Energy callbacks regarding smart meters. This second workshop today will address specifically written and reply comments on NV Energy's opt-out proposals provided in their comments, which were filed on December 28, 2011. NV Energy was directed to provide an analysis on the technological feasibility and cost to offer alternatives to the installation of a smart meter with respect to A, an analog meter, B, a digital meter with no radio installed, C, a smart meter with radio transmission turned off, and D, a smart meter with active radio transmission. Comments in today's workshop are limited to the discussion of NV Energy's opt-out proposals. I know many of you have continued to submit comments on issues related to the first workshop. However, that is not within the scope of this proceeding today. Given that many of you are not interested in having a smart meter installed on your home, the Commission is interested in hearing from you about what that smart meter opt-out process should be. So this is your opportunity. This is the last workshop the Commission is conducting in this docket. So I look forward to hearing your comments on NV Energy's opt-out proposals. Many of your comments also request that the Commission put you on a postponement list. However, those inquiries are not properly addressed to the Commission. You must contact NV Energy directly to do this by phone And get ready, does everyone have a pen? I'll say the numbers twice. In Southern Nevada, you can call 702-402-4273. Again, that number is 702-402-4273. And in Northern Nevada, you can call 888-559-9744. Again, that number is in Northern Nevada is 888-559-9744. While all members of the public are welcome to attend today's workshop on opt-out proposals, any interested person that would like to comment today was required to file comments to the Commission on or before last Friday, January 13th at 12:00 p.m. To ensure that interested persons receive information regarding the smart meter investigation, we encourage you to register with our Commission service list for this docket, which is again docket 11-10007. If you've already signed up to the service list but have not been receiving information to date, please check with our front desk to make sure that they have sufficient contact information for you. Today's workshop will be conducted in 3 parts. First, NV Energy will briefly explain its opt-out proposal. Second, the Commission will ask questions of NV Energy. And third, a comment period provided. Given the number of people today, all comments will be limited to 5 minutes each and will be timed. So that's it for the procedure. Let's go ahead and get started. Mr. Elisegi, I'll turn the floor over to you.
Actually, Ms. Wenzel, this is Tammy Cordova in Las Vegas. I just wanted to put for the purposes of the record that Mr. Denise and myself are here in Las Vegas, and Mr. Stuff is also here in Las Vegas for the BCP.
Okay, great. Yes, I understood there were council present in Vegas. Thank you. Mr. Elisegi.
Thank you, Hearing Officer Wenzel. In response to the Commission's second request and notice for comments, the company assembled a team of participants from its Regulatory and Rates Department.
Can you please bring the mic a little closer? I'm sorry. I just want to make sure everybody in Vegas can hear you.
The NV Energize program, and where necessary, it drew on subject matter experts to assess the cost of the 4 options identified in the Commission's order and to develop rates for those different options. With me today are Gary Smith, Laura Walsh, in addition Jeff Evans of Black & Veatch, members of that team, to help explain our comments and answer the Commission's questions about those comments. Preliminarily, I'm going to touch on 4 topics. I'm going to explain the principles that should guide the development of any opt-out option, summarize the 4 alternatives, list the rates for NVE's preferred option, and briefly explain why a non-communicating LNG meter is NVE's preferred option. In July 2010, the Commission approved NV Energy's request and authorized NV Energy to replace all meters within its service territory with communicating AMI meters. It's important to note that NV Energy is not the first electric utility in the state to install smart meters. In 2000, Valley Electric Association replaced all of the meters in its service territory with communicating meters. And in 2009, Mount Wheeler replaced all of the meters in its service territory with communicating meters. Today, 710 of 724,000 typical residential meters have been replaced in Southern Nevada. NV Energy has completed 99.29% of its scheduled replacements. Today, the communicating AMI meter is the standard meter installation. NV Energy provides the standard meter installation to customers at no special charge. Rule 16 establishes 2 principles that should guide the development of any opt-out option. The first is that a customer may select a non-standard metering arrangement for any reason or no reason at all. The second is that the customer should be responsible for bearing the incremental cost of the associated non-standard metering arrangement. This ensures that other customers bear no costs for that non-standard metering arrangement. NV Energy analyzed the 4 options that the Commission put forward. The first is an analog meter. The analog meter cost is based on a premise visit to inspect the meter box, to replace any existing meter with a refurbished and tested analog meter, to install a new locking ring and a new seal to ensure the safety and the security of that meter. The second option is a digital meter that does not track interval data. That option also involves a site visit to inspect the safety of the meter box, to install a new digital meter, to install a new locking ring and a new seal to ensure the safety of that meter. The third option is a non-communicating AMI meter. This is a AMI meter with the communication panel removed. So there is no radio in that meter. That option would collect interval data and would allow the utility to retrieve that interval data through a monthly meter read and a monthly probe. The fourth option is an AMI meter with limited transmissions. This option requires the company to modify the meter, to program the FlexNet radio to transmit only once every 84 hours, and to turn off the Zigbee chip in the meter. Again, that option involves a site visit to install the meter, inspect the meter box, and ensure that the meter is safe and secure. With respect to those options, NV Energy's preferred option is option C, a non-communicating smart meter. In the South, the upfront charge developed by the company is $110 per month, with a monthly recurring charge of $14.86 per month. In the North, the upfront charge is $130, with a monthly recurring charge of $13.02. These charges reflect the full incremental cost and are not based on an attenuated marginal cost. NV Energy's preferred option, as I noted, is the non-communicating AMI meter. There are two primary reasons for this. First, that option is most consistent with the company's obligations under its ARA grant. Specifically, the DOE will cover 50% of the cost of the meter, 50% of the meter modification costs, and 50% of the installation costs. The second important reason why this is the NV Energy's preferred option is that that option is most consistent with the state and federal government's energy policy. In conclusion, I think it's important to note in 2010, when the Commission considered this option, Dr. Otsuka testified on behalf of the staff that the question is not whether the company invests in the smart grid, but when. That's because at the end of 2011, over 48 million smart meters have been installed across the United States.
Thank you, Mr. Ellisay. Your time's expired. Okay, we will take questions from the dais in Las Vegas. I'm not sure Mr. Davis or Mr. Sherez who wants to go first.
Good morning, Mr. Ellisay.
Good morning, Mr. Davis.
I have some questions on the cost for your options or standard options A, B, C, and D. Okay. First, let's go through standard A first, which is the analog meter. Is this your standard analog meter that you took off from the premises, or is this a different type of analog meter?
Mr. Smith will answer that question, Mr. Davis.
This is Gary Smith. That is a meter that would have been taken off and refurbished. That is correct.
Okay, real good. Are these meters, is this standard analog meter, will this be, I know, and the reason why I'm asking this question, because you know that Southwest Gas, sometimes on their analog meters, they read them remotely with wands. Is this going to be read locally at the meter box, or be read remotely with a wand or something like that? This is standard.
The analog meter is read by a meter reader.
Okay, good. And and then I'm assuming I heard what Mr. Ellisay said. I'm assuming that that because this meter, the analog meter, is not compatible with the digital smart meter as far as the socket installations and things like that. Is that correct?
Can you say that one more time?
This analog meter is not compatible with your digital smart meter as far as, you know, your hardware, you know, how it installs in, you know, and so you're gonna need special installation hardware for this, is that right? Did you go through that?
At the meter panel locations, it goes into the same socket. We are replacing the locking rings and seals to secure the meter.
Well, so it does go in the same socket?
That is correct.
Okay, so it just requires new locking rings and seals? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. And then, will this meter get, since this, is this going to be recalibrated before it goes to the site?
Yes, we're proposing that all analog meters, if that was the option chosen, that the meter would be removed, probably replaced with a refurbished analog meter that has been tested to ANSI standards.
Okay, great. And the customer visit, what's that? Is this the customer visit? Is this there's not a separate customer visit on top of what you're on top of installing the meter? Is that right?
There would be a visit to that customer premise,
So
removing the meter, replacing the meter.
But there's not two visits. There's not two visits. The visit also includes installation of the meter. Is that right?
That's correct. Installation of the meter.
Okay. And does this cost includes? I'm assuming this cost includes replacing. You know, once the customer leaves the premise, it includes the cost replacing that meter with the smart meter.
It does include at the conclusion, if a customer was to leave that premise or move, we would replace back with a traditional smart meter.
And okay, let's go through standard B. Is this digital meter different from the digital meters in C and D?
This meter is a standard digital meter that does not collect interval data. It does not also does not transmit. So it would require a manual read.
So this meter is going to be read locally. It's not going to be read with a wand.
That is correct, sir.
Okay, great. And this, like the standard A, this requires locking rings and everything else. I'm assuming too. Is that right?
That's correct. It would require a locking ring and seal, a site visit to replace the meter.
Okay. I forgot one question. Going back to standard A, what happens if you know? I know we don't have this. Most of the meters been installed in the south, but I know that you have a good majority of the meters have been installed up north. What happens if the analog meters are already at the customer premises? How do you address that?
It would require a site visit to inspect those facilities. We would replace that meter with a refurbished and ANSI tested meter, installation of a locking ring and seal.
Why would you replace the meter, just out of curiosity, since you had a meter there for a period of time?
As you know, analog meters tend to run slow over time. They're not as accurate. We want to bring all meters up to the same standard.
Just a minute. I'm hearing outbursts from Las Vegas. Again, I ask people not to interrupt the speaker or you will be asked to leave the building.
Well, we have the right to object to...
Okay, again, there's another outburst in Las Vegas.
Sir.
I would ask security, if they will not comply with my directive, to be escorted from the room.
Sir, tell me how to.
All right, let's continue.
They're hiding the
Mr.
truth.
Smith.
They're lying to you. Those meters are reliable.
All right, let's take a break. We're off the record.
Hearing Officer Wenzel, he's being removed from the room as we speak.
It's lies.
Okay, great,
He's
thank you.
just left, so we should be good to go.
I'm sorry, Mr. Smith, I'm just, as you know, I'm just trying to get you.
John, we're not on the record.
I'm sorry.
I'll be down on the first floor because I'd like to speak to you. Thank you.
Hearing Officer Wenzel, we are, everything is set down here.
Okay, Mr. Smith, can you pick off where you left off? Do you need Mr. Davis to repeat the question?
I think I have the question. He wants to know why it requires a different premise trip for an analog meter. There's four specific reasons. The first is we want to identify and inspect the facility. We want to inspect for tampering and theft on the system.
Oh, I'm getting waves from the audience. Not everyone can hear you. If you can just move the mic closer.
So we want to inspect for tampering and theft. We want to recalibrate that meter to ensure that the meter is operating to ANSI standards and that there isn't a subsidy of one meter option versus another, so all customers are on the same playing field. And we want to install and secure that system with locking rings and seals for safety purposes. This is all geared towards a safe, secure, and accurate and reliable service to our customers.
And just one more, before I get back, go back to option B, just one more comment on that standard A. Now, the cost you show for standard A, that those are all your costs, and there's no cost. The concern I have is that you're not understating your cost or overstating your cost. That those are your costs, and there won't be a subsidy for installing the meters, or again a penalty for if the people want the meters. Is that right?
This is our best estimate of the incremental cost for that option.
Okay, great. Getting back to standard B. Okay. And the standard B is the information collected in the standard meter standard B is that you're not going to collecting 15-minute interval data on that, are you?
We are not. This is a digital meter, but it only has the capabilities of collecting the register read on a monthly basis.
And getting back to, for both A and B, you have back office costs included too, because you're going to have to put this data in your back office system somewhere along the line. Is that right?
That is correct. We have back office costs in that estimate.
Great. And like in standard A, you include the cost of installing a new smart meter after when the customer leaves the premises. Is that right?
That is correct, sir.
Okay, great. Let's go to standard C, and that's your preferred standard, I believe. Okay.
Standard C, the non-communicating meter, is our preferred option.
And what is the difference in the meter between standard C and standard D? Is there any difference in the meter itself?
They're both digital meters. However, in standard C, we can collect interval data from that meter, the LNG meter. It also is the option that is supported through the Smart Grid Investment Grant that allows us to still receive Department of Energy reimbursement. That particular meter allows for situational awareness with our customers, so it also supports energy policy. We would still collect on a monthly basis manually, but we can bring that back, the information back, and display it on the portal for our customers so they can see how they're using their energy usage.
And will this be read with a wand or locally?
This would be a probed meter at the facility by a meter reader.
And you're collecting, when the meter is read, you're collecting 15-minute interval data off the meter, is that right?
Yes, sir. We would collect 15-minute interval data on a monthly basis.
And does this require any special back office cost to install the meter data information once the meter reader has it?
We're still collecting on a monthly basis, so there is some back office cost as well.
Does this standard C is require calibration by, separate calibration other than what you would normally do?
We would go through the same process. This particular option is the same as the smart meter. We go through the manufacturing testing. We go through NV Energy testing, and we do third-party testing for verification of accuracy with the University of Nevada, Reno.
So it sounds like there's no special calibration costs at all associated with this, like we had in options A and B.
No, there is not.
Okay, great.
The one point, though, with this option, this particular meter is our second meter source. This meter does have a communications module that would be required to be removed to be a non-communicating meter. We would physically remove it from the meter itself.
So the Zigbee would be removed, is that right?
Zigbee and the FlexNet communications module would be physically removed from the meter.
I understand, okay.
Once we do that, we would still retest that meter for ANSI standards once that module is removed.
Oh, I see. So would require retesting, still require retesting, is that right?
We would retest it for accuracy since we have broken the seal of that meter.
Understand. Okay. And let's go through standard D. Now, does this standard D, does that also meet the DOE requirement?
That is correct. This particular standard is a smart meter. It is reimbursable by the Department of Energy. This particular meter, what we would do in this case, it would have some shop time to remove the Zigbee chip, and we would reprogram the back office system to only allow that meter to communicate once every 84 hours. We cannot remove or disable the FlexNet communications today altogether.
And this is collecting 15-minute interval data also, is that right?
That is correct.
Mm-hmm. And let me just see here. And the calibration techniques would be the same as option C?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And also for option C and D, is there any, well, let's say for option C, is there any cost associated with going back to the site once the customer leaves the premise?
We would replace that meter with a communicating smart meter.
Okay. How about for option D?
Option D would be the same. We would replace with the communicating smart meter. Again, in option D, that meter does not have the Zigbee chip that's been disabled. It would probably, at this point, we would require a field visit to re-enable that.
And the reason why the service charges for option D are so low is because there's no meter read required. It's read remotely. Is that right? And so I guess the dollar charge you're looking at is more or less a lot of the back office costs associated with it. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And a few more questions. Is it possible to set these meters up to read, to eliminate the interval data and just have a cumulative read once a month?
I believe so. I'd have to check with our technical folks, but yes. We could read it, just the register read.
Just the register read only? What, if you would do that, what would be the, do you have an idea what the cost would be associated with that?
That would just be programmed within the existing software.
But so you wouldn't, with this, so just so we get this straight, this wouldn't, you wouldn't collect the 15 minute interval data, it would just be a cumulative data only, is that right?
That is correct. There is one issue we have to work through, though. When we spoke to the Department of Energy, what qualified that meter to be a smart grid meter reimbursable by the DOE was the 15-minute interval capturing.
Mm-hmm. I don't
believe.
I'm sorry.
I don't believe we would get reimbursement for that meter if that was the case.
Do you know? I know other utilities have gotten DOE grants for the same type of meter. Is that correct?
Yes, they have. Yes.
And have they made this? Have they made any inquiries at DOE about this? The question that I had. You know. When we approached the Department of Energy and walked them through this option, NV Energy was unique with our supplier, where we had a secondary supplier that had an opportunity where the FlexNet module and the Zigbee module was a separate installation to the LNG meter. That's what's providing us the opportunity to provide this option. Not all utilities will have that same option or same capability. We are also working with the manufacturer to see how we could go about programming these meters to do this functionality over the air so that it would not require a premise trip. The issue with that is that solution is in concept. It hasn't been through engineering yet. And the best estimate would be March of 2012 before that option would be available. And just a couple more questions. On your cost estimate, you have a credit for standard route installation. What is that?
Could you repeat that again?
If you look at your table 2, you'll see credit for standard route installation. It looks like it's reduction in cost.
Yeah, I'm going to let Laura Walsh respond to that if I could.
Okay.
What that is that reflects a credit if the meter had been installed in the planned process where you're doing it in an ordered fashion and you're going straight down a street. The cost of installation is much less, and therefore we're giving a credit for what would have been the anticipated standard installation so as to not double count that.
Okay. And then the monthly reads, you know, and I took a guess on this, but I think they're based on a certain amount of opt-out customers. Is that correct? Otherwise, when I look at the monthly read cost for standard A, it's $16.99, or the same for standard. Those are based on a certain amount of customers opting out. Is that right?
That's correct.
How many customers did you? I'm sorry.
There was an assumption of 4,500 customers in the south and 3,000 customers in the north. In developing the costs associated with implementing the meter reading and the systems and back office required for that, they looked at what that would be. They made a reasonable assumption of those who would opt out. If you look at the cost in detail, they found that there are some step changes in those costs. Using these numbers left us at a lower cost prior to a step change that would cause the cost to go up if above a certain amount. Gary may be able to answer what that amount is, but above a certain amount of customers, and therefore the cost would go up. This used the lower cost because that's what would result from these reasonable estimates. And then that cost was then divided by the expected number of customers to come up with a per customer amount.
And when I read your data, when I read your report, it appeared like these costs were based on hiring 3 meter readers in the south and 2 in the north. Is that right? I think that was
that is correct. That was our estimate for those number of customers that would opt out. Those were the FTE requirements to support the labor to read those meters manually.
And what would happen, you know, if we had a tariff like this in place and you had less customers opt out, like say only had 1,000, what would you do?
You know, we really looked at what happens if the numbers were to increase, and Ms. Walsh talked about that a little bit. We put a cap on it. If the numbers had increased, say, to 15,000, it would require additional labor to support the meter reading function. And then back office, the software license costs would increase at a rate if the number exceeded 25,000. We did not do analysis if indeed the numbers got lower than our estimates of 0.5% of our customers were to select the opt-out option. Obviously, we would look at that. There would be an opportunity to reduce some costs. But if you look at the number of FTEs that we have proposed statewide at 5, there's, you know, it's almost a fixed cost labor pool to complete and cover that territory.
And I would add that 2 things happen as you change the number of customers used in the calculation. One is that, as I said, there's step changes that go up. There also, as you brought up, there might be a step change that goes down, as in the number of FTEs necessary for reading meters. However, in the north, some of that is mandated by the fact that our service territory is very spread out. And so it's not a centralized function as much as it is in the south. So there are step changes downward and upward. That's one thing that changes as you change the number of customers who opt out. The second thing is the denominator. So one affects the numerator, and one affects the denominator. So as you reduce the number of customers, you're dividing a fixed cost by a smaller number, and therefore the rate goes up. So if you were to graph this over the number of customers, you would find that for a great number of values on the low end of customers, when you pick our estimate, you'd actually be understating the cost per. There'd be some narrow bandwidth, which I haven't graphed this or calculated this, that where you might be have a rate that's a little bit above what the cost is, but then once you hit a step change upward, you're back in a situation where the calculation per customer is less than the cost incurred. We did our best to come up with a cost that we believed covered those incremental costs, didn't create a subsidy, but was based upon our best information that we have today.
Mr. Davis, this is Sean Alsegi. One additional point. It is only the monthly charge that would be altered if the number of customers varies. The upfront charge is based solely on the cost of installation and the cost associated with that specific installation. Therefore, the upfront charge, at least the way the company has designed the rate, would not vary depending on the number of customers that select the option.
That's correct. Your questions went to the back office costs, meter reading costs, which are ongoing costs, and our input components to the ongoing charge. The upfront cost is already calculated per installation, and every bit of that's incremental. Therefore, there would be no change based upon the number of customers who choose opting out to the upfront charge. It is strictly the monthly charge that would vary based upon the components that I discussed, and it could go up or down.
And I would imagine if we had a tariff in place for this, that this would be reviewed every rate case to see how, you know, during the, you know, to see if the charges were compatible with your needs. Is that right?
That's correct. It would be reviewed at every rate case.
And just how do you when you compare these costs versus, you know, versus the cost opt-out costs from other utilities? How did you compare?
We obviously looked at other utilities that are going through a similar process. You know, and a lot of it is situational, depending on the particular utility. We did.
Mr. Smith, please move the mic closer. We're really having trouble hearing you.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
We did look at other utilities, and you know, there's a lot of variations amongst the utilities, but I believe most utilities are approaching establishment of the cost in a very similar manner. However, the rates do change based on the particular utility.
And I think that's all the questions I have.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Mr. Sherez?
I have just a few for Mr. Smith and Ms. Walsh. First, Mr. Smith, on the option 3 where the Zigbee's removed. If a new homeowner moves into a home that's had the Zigbee removed, how do you go about bringing the meter back to standard meter?
Today, we'd have to do a premise trip to physically turn that Zigbee chip on. We can do that at the facility, or replacement of that meter.
On page 13 of your comments, you referred to the longest allowable time between transmissions currently is 84 hours. Why is that limited to 84 hours? Why can't it be more than 84 hours?
It's a configuration of the supplier's back-end software, and it was originally designed to ensure that the meter continues to stay connected to the network, so it does its basic check-in at a minimum of 84 hours. Obviously, the meters communicate on a normal basis more frequently than that, but it's a standard built into their software to ensure that we have a network that's communicating. As I've mentioned before, though, that particular supplier is now, with opt-outs and other utilities going forward with options around opt-out, they are looking at possibilities of modifying that software to communicate on a less frequent basis.
On your comments on page 14, footnote 25. It references a letter from Itron about the current manual reading system no longer being supported after December 31st, 2012. And going back and reviewing that letter, it seems to refer to handheld devices. And in your answers to Mr. Davis, I was under the impression that the meter reader would not read the meter using the same technology that, let's say, the Las Vegas Valley Water District or Southwest Gas use, but they would actually physically read the meter. Is that correct?
They physically read the meter and plug it into a handheld unit. This is not a communicating, like a Southwest Gas, this is not a communicating remote meter where you can drive by or collect that information remotely. You have to physically go to the site, read the meter, and plug it into the handheld.
Okay. And a few questions for Ms. Walsh. In your comments, you're referring to the Portland General Electric. Is Portland General Electric roughly the same size as Nevada Power Company?
I actually don't know. Do you know, Mr. Smith?
Portland General Electric's about 800,000 customers.
Okay. And in your comments, you commented that they did implement an opt-out tariff, and to date, only 2 customers in Portland General have opted out.
That is correct.
Okay. What would happen to the cost, Ms. Walsh, if just a limited number of customers chose to opt out? Similar to what happened with Portland General.
Again, as I discussed, there's 2 things that go on. Your costs are going to change, and then the number of customers you divide those costs over will change. So I don't know for sure. If it were that extreme, they're likely to go up. And that again would be the ongoing cost, not the upfront cost. The upfront cost would remain the same. The ongoing cost would likely go up because regardless, someone's going to have to go read that meter, and the information is going to have to be input into our systems and work through those systems to accurately develop a bill. And again, to keep them at the same standard that we would have all other customers, we would want to do our best to provide the information to customers that we provide the other customers, to bring them up as close as we could to the standard that we have for other customers. So a lot of costs on an ongoing basis would not go away. They would simply be divided by a smaller number. Therefore, the rate would...
What was the basis for the 4,500 customers for Nevada Power Company and the 3,000 for Sierra Pacific Power Company, using those numbers?
The basis, this is Gary Smith, the basis for that was the current postponed list that we've been maintaining here in the South. It's sitting at about 0.5%, and we just took that to the north and kept the same basis. However, we have benchmarked this with other utilities, and a lot of utilities are running about 0.5%. On postponement lists, physical opt-outs are varying across for those that have an opt-out procedure.
Do you have any data on how many, or do we have a final order in California where customers have been allowed to opt out?
We do not have, the California Commission delayed a vote on the final order. It had been scheduled for January 12th. I do not know the date to which that vote was continued. It's my understanding that there was a larger number of customers in California that are interested in an opt-out option.
And one final question. Ms. Walsh, have you read BCP's comments?
Yes.
And number one, BCP states, just their header there, the Commission should permit customers to opt out of the smart meters at no charge until the Commission addresses smart meter investments, cost savings in a general rate case. Do you agree with BCP there?
No, I do not.
Can you tell me why?
Well, a couple things. The business case, and Mr. Smith can provide more information around this, the business case that was presented that I believe was one of the things considered by the Commission in approving this was that you were going to have benefits available over a period of time that coupled with the funding from the DOE would offset the costs. Now, it took several years for those benefits to offset those costs in the ideal world assumed in the business case. Now, we just had a general rate case where we stated that those costs weren't included, and this did not come up as an issue in that general rate case. I think there's an assumption that the benefits are working to offset those costs, and hopefully a recognition that it's going to take a period of time for those benefits to offset those costs. So at the current time, I believe the costs outweigh the benefits. So no, I don't think you need to wait to a general rate case. Secondly, the rates that we're discussing here for opt-out, as we've stated, the upfront costs are per installation. They're incremental cost associated with accommodating that non-standard meter installation, and then also bringing back that meter installation to a standard at a later point. The ongoing costs are also intended to be incremental. I have gone and looked at what's currently in our rates for different items. The only thing that I can think of that may be duplicative in current rates would be, and that would be different from the new standard once it is set in rates, is meter reading costs. And on a non-reconciled basis for the South, again, we don't do an embedded study, but we do a marginal study. But based upon the information I have available to me, I looked at that last night, that would be about 90 cents. on a monthly basis. So certainly there could be an adjustment in the interim period to reflect that if we move forward with rates. However, once you reset rates to the standard assumed, which is what we've done here, we've assumed the standard of a smart meter. We've developed what we think are appropriate costs and rates.
I have no more questions, Hearing Officer Wenzel. I believe Mr. Davis might have one more.
Just one more. When you looked at the other utilities, excuse me, can you hear me? I'm sorry. When you looked at the other utilities that opted out, had opt-out clauses, what type of meters did they propose for the opt-out? Did they propose analog meters, or like the standard C that you're suggesting, or what kind of meters did they propose in the opt-out? Do you have any information on that?
Portland, I'll just give you a couple benchmarks. Portland is a non-communicating smart meter, particularly an LNG meter. In California, they were going with a non-communicating meter. They've also got an option on the table for an analog meter. In Arizona, Salt River Project, they're going with a non-communicating meter. In Maine, I believe there's multiple options for customers as well. Our basic desire is to zoom in on one standard or one option so that we can maximize our operating cost in facilitating that option.
Okay, thank you.
Hearing Officer Wenzel, David Shiraz, I actually have one more question. Mr. Smith, on page 11, it's stated that analog meters are no longer produced by any domestic supplier of meters.
Yeah, the main manufacturers of meters have all switched to either smart meters or digital meters. We don't have supply any longer. They're discontinued in manufacturing of analog meters. They're no longer being manufactured.
No longer being domestically manufactured, or no longer being manufactured?
To my knowledge, no longer, there's no longer an analog meter that meets the ANSI standards available for purchase.
Are the digital meters manufactured in the United States or somewhere else?
The digital meters are U.S. companies with some assembly in Mexico.
Thank you.
And just for clarification, the analog meters that you're referring to that are manufactured, that would be manufactured outside the United States, do not meet ANSI standards, so they would not meet the calibration criteria for ANSI. Is that right?
That's my understanding. Yes.
I believe we're done with our questions here, Officer Wenzel.
Okay, well, thanks a lot. You left nothing for me to ask. Other than to make sure that we're all clear based on a lot of this discussion about the costs that the company proposed and questions that were raised by BCP and also by staff in their comments, assuming the commission does approve allowing customers to opt out of the smart meter program, are NV Energy's proposals based on preliminary cost estimates that will be determined in a separate docket when NV Energy actually files a tariff to implement whatever recommendation the commission approves in this docket? To put it more succinctly, we're not approving costs in this docket, correct?
It's the company's understanding that the commission is investigating options.
Move your mic closer.
I apologize, Hearing Officer Wenzel. We understand that the commission is investigating options, and there will probably be steps necessary to implement those options if the commission adopts a non-standard metering arrangement. I would anticipate that the utility would need to file a tariff. That tariff would have terms and conditions. We set out an example of what those terms and conditions might be, but that is not a tariff filing.
Right.
So therefore, we anticipate there will be a decision about whether there should be an opt-out option. If so, possibly direction to the company about what to pursue, and then the company would make a filing to address the commission's final report or order in this docket.
Great. I just wanted to make sure that we're all on the same page about what we're doing and what we're not doing. Okay, those are all the questions from the commission. We have a little bit more time here before we take a break, so I'm going to go ahead and move into comments from our entities sitting here at the table. Let's go ahead and we'll start with AARP in Las Vegas. Mr. Gold.
Thank you, Hearing Officer Wenzel. For the record, my name is Barry Gold. I'm the Director of Government Relations with AARP Nevada. AARP Nevada would like to thank the Commission for their interim order requiring NV Energy to develop a media plan to publicize the deployment plan for smart meters, to provide additional training for customer communications, and also to publish information on the requesting to be put on a postponement list. I think those are good first steps. AARP, in their comments, would like to state that the PUC should allow customers to opt out of having smart meters. They should be allowed to retain analog meters if they're more efficient. If there is a cost, these costs should be just and reasonable. They should be cost-based and not double collected. We've heard some information, and the question is, are any of these costs that will be determined perhaps at a later workshop or hearing covered in current revenue requirements? It's AARP's understanding that NV Energy has not yet reflected a reduction in meter readers and other so-called benefits of AMI approved in the rates that were just approved and became effective in January. If that's the case, aren't the expenses claimed by NV Energy already being paid by customers? NV Energy should not be allowed to double recover any cost associated with installation, including providing the opt-out option for customers who choose it. No charges should be imposed until the Commission investigates the basis for the NV Energy's calculation and makes adjustments to reflect expenses that are already included in the rates. The opt-out program should provide a discount for people who are of low income. Other states have already done this. There may be people who are on low-income energy assistance program who would like to opt out, but would be effectively banned from doing so because of the extreme costs involved. If smart meters are not installed, why should there be an extra charge? People should be allowed to keep their analog meters if they're still there. There was a question raised about that. Why would you need to replace a meter that was already there and seems to be working? The opt-out program should be conspicuously disclosed with information about it being disclosed to customers. NV Energy should contact everyone who has complained about smart meters or who have asked to be put on the postponement list to tell them about the opt-out program. Recently, just published on the 14th in the Bakersfield Californian, there was a thing that we talked about. The California PUC has a plan that they may vote on soon. People talked about that they did some of the things that AARP has suggested. One of the things they did is they lowered the charges recommended by the utility company for the suggested opt-out proposals. They also included lower cost for lower income customers, and they also suggested that an analog meter option be available. And that's basically the AARP comments on this workshop. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gold. I do appreciate your comments. Mr. Davis or Mr. Sherez, do you have any questions for Mr. Gold?
I have one. Mr. Gold, you state that the opt-out program, if it's adopted, should provide a discount for low-income customers. Who should pay those additional costs that the low-income customers, those other customers who are opting out, or the remaining customers?
Well, I think that's something the Commission can determine. I think some of those revenue requirements should be looked at what is included in the current rates, and also could some of this mechanism be done through the low-income energy assistance programs that are currently in place? That could be a potential how they could be identified and possibly to locate some of those costs. We don't want to exclude people from having the right to do that just because they're low income.
Does Nevada have low-income rates like California does, or some of the other states that have been considering this?
I'm not aware of that. I just know that we have those programs, and other states have in fact when they've had opt-out proposals, have considered the low-income people in their programs.
Would ARP be opposed if we were to do something along those lines of having the other opt-out customers subsidize the low-income opt-out customers? So that the remaining customers who who use the standard metering are not harmed?
I think we'd have to examine those proposals when they were developed and make a determination at that time.
Thank you, Mr. Gold. I have no more questions. Hearing Officer Wenzel.
I just have one question. Mr. Gold, one of your comments was about double accounting from the utility, is that correct?
Yes.
And you recognize that, you can't speak for the commission, but the commission does reflect in the rates that there might be some double accounting, and, that would, at the next general rate case, that again, that would, at the point of the next general rate case, those rates would be readjusted up to reflect the, because of the double accounting that the commission looked at, because you're, as you stated, maybe the meter reading costs are included in this GRC. You recognize that?
I do recognize that, but that would mean that ratepayers would be paying for the next 3 years those rates that were included for meter readers, as well as paying to have meter readers come and read their regular meters that were not smart meters.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gold. BCP, who is going to be the spokesperson?
I'll start, and Mr.
Okay.
Jacobson may have something to add. This is David Norris. I'm a senior deputy in the Attorney General's office. The discussion we just heard between Ms. Walsh and the commission, and also from Mr. Gold, illustrates in a nutshell the problem we have with all this. For the benefit of the customers, the rate case is only filed every 3 years. Nevada Power's most recent rate case ended, or a decision was made on it, in December of 2011. So we will not be seeing another rate case from them unless they choose to file an interim rate case until 2014. In the meantime, we've produced evidence here that the company itself submitted during the rate case that shows that they expected to have 100 meter readers discharged by, I believe it was October 24th. In the meantime, the payroll savings from those will not be recognized in rates, and they will continue those savings to go right to their bottom line until such time as the commission is able to adjust rates. Now, I recognize the fact that talking about these costs is, in this proceeding, is in essence doing it in a vacuum, because under normal circumstances, what we would have had is the costs, or we would deal with all this in a rate case or some other proceeding, rate-setting proceeding, in which there'd be discovery and all the panoply of due process rights that all parties have. So, with all due respect to Ms. Walsh, we have no idea of knowing whether her numbers are accurate or not. And I believe, as Mr. Elisagi said, that what's reflected in their comments are an estimate that they've done. Obviously, the commission, before it authorizes any kind of cost recovery, is going to have to explore all of this stuff. And so in the interim, we're saying that the amount, however much it would be to take care of these customers who wish to opt out, it'd be far less than whatever they're saving from the employees that they've discharged. And we think under those circumstances, given the fact that this is all gravy, basically, that is going to them, that they can spring for the customers who wish to opt out of this process, given the fact that the customers never asked for this in the first place, given the fact that the way this process works, when we had the hearing 2 years ago, it certainly appeared to our office that DOE was driving the timeline on this, not the company, not the commission, nobody in Nevada, basically. And we just think that it would be highly inappropriate to stick the customers that opt out with these additional charges when no one's even determined yet. We have no basis for knowing whether those charges are accurate. We have no basis for knowing what money is being saved. We believe, based on the estimates we've seen, that they're collecting far in excess through the paying payroll savings than what would have to go out to take care of these other customers. So given all that, in a nutshell, that is our position here, is that now if the commission feels more comfortable in having a rate proceeding of some sort in order to investigate this, because right now all you're investigating are so-called options, which are not based on any real foundation that's verifiable like it would be in a rate proceeding. So we would suggest if you've got difficulty with all this is to order something be filed by the utility that would give the commission and all other parties a chance to explore the dollar amounts that have been kicked around here.
Thank you.
Mr. Jacobson may have something to add.
This is Dan Jacobson, the Technical Staff Manager at BCP. Key points, again, that coming through the rate cases that Sierra Pacific and Nevada Power recently had, every single customer is currently paying to have their meter read manually. 450,000 meters are not being read manually in the South, so the company is charging as if they were reading, but they are not incurring that expense, and we expect the cost savings to continue to go up. With regard, and so if the customers who opt out have to pay to have their meter read manually, they in effect would be paying twice for the same thing because their current rates are paying for meter reading, and if there was another charge for meter reading, that would be double payment. With regard to the upfront charge, again, we think the savings are very significant that the company will reap, and that the commission would be well within its rights to ask the company to absorb that. The last point I would make is there was mention earlier about the business case for the smart meters. We provided a witness back when smart meters were addressed to, and he wrestled with the whole accounting and demonstrated that the savings are much greater than the cost the company will incur. We think there's room, given the company's projections, for the company to absorb the upfront costs. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Davis or Mr. Shreds, any questions for BCP?
Just one, Mr. Norris?
Yes.
You recognize that, I think as you pointed out, I heard your comments, I was listening, trying to listen very closely, but you recognize that the commission, as you pointed out, would this would be looked at in a separate docket, as Herringhofer and Winslow said, and these costs would be examined that time and to determine if in fact there would be no cost or some cost involved in this tariff. You recognize that, right?
Well, I presume that what the company would have to do is file some sort of a tariff if, in fact, the commission recommends that an opt-out provision be approved or that some sort of opt-out provision be available for customers. Possibly the cost could be explored there. I just don't think that the customers should have to wait until 2014, particularly when the utility decided on its own to hold what meters costs had been incurred out of the last rate case. So it's just a matter of fundamental fairness here. If the commission come up with a device to drag everybody in here and have everybody prove exactly what their costs and savings are, that would be fine.
Okay, thank you.
And I have just one. While the cost of meter readers may have been in the test period and the certification period of the general rate case, didn't the company also remove their investments in smart meters and depreciation expense associated with smart meters?
Again, this is Dan Jacobson. Yes, that's accurate. And the comments that we submitted, we demonstrated. We cited the testimony of Dalek Samil, the CFO, who said they have taken the investment of the smart meters out. What that means is they did not do anything to take the cost savings that they were going to experience as a result of smart meters. They didn't reflect that in the rate case. Consequently, the rates that were just adopted for both Sierra and for Nevada Power reflect the old meter, the investments for the old meters and the expense or the cost characteristics of manually reading the meters. So again, that's the basis for our claim that customers today, all customers, are paying as if there were manual meters being read, and 450,000 of those meters in the South are not being read manually, and more won't be read manually. And we're just saying during the interim, we don't think it's appropriate to charge until this whole thing is addressed in the next rate case, when hopefully there'll be a lot of savings to pass on to customers at the next rate case.
Given BCP's statements that smart meters result in savings, why should the commission allow any customers to opt out? if that will increase cost?
Well, I think first of all, that as we point out in our comments, the customers, the ones sitting here certainly, and many others, as near as we can tell, object to all this. There are serious problems involving privacy and other matters that have been raised in earlier proceedings. We think it's just basic fairness to these customers that they should not have to have one of these things if they don't want one.
And does the BCP also believe that these customers should pay the incremental cost of having what would be a non-standard meter?
No, not at this point, not until such time as Mr. Jacobson indicated that the commission sorts all this out in the proper rate setting proceeding.
Is the rate case, is that just a snapshot of what the revenues and expenses and investments are at a given point in time? And we do not reach beyond the, when considering general rates, we don't reach beyond the certification period?
Well, again, this is Dan Jacobson. Yes, the rate case is a snapshot, and we think the next time a snapshot is taken, which would be 2013 for Sierra and 2014 for Nevada Power, that snapshot at that point in time should show huge savings as associated with eliminating meter readers and other, all the cost, cars, trucks that meter readers drive and systems and so forth. As well as trouble isolation. We think that there's going to be huge savings, and the point is the company is going to reap those savings early, well in advance of the next rate cases, and so we're asking the commission to take that into consideration. And I mean, if you look at the revenues the company would generate from the rates they proposed, it's a couple $1 million. The amount they're going to save from not having to pay meters almost immediately is much greater than that. And we think the commission has the basis for saying, for those few customers who opt out, there's no reason to charge them. That's the essence of our comments. And we think that fits into the whole rate-making structure.
Just one final question, Mr. Jacobson. If the commission doesn't establish costs for opting out outside of a general rate case, should the commission not adopt any opt-out tariff until a general rate case and just have customers who potentially would opt out on a postponement list into the next general rate case? What does the BCP propose there?
We think if there is going to be an opt-out option, there probably should be a tariff filing to provide the details of the terms and conditions for opting out to get that into the tariff.
But not the cost.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Davis has another question.
Just a point of clarification. So, since we have general public here, and I guess when you talk about snapshot, this is sort of a snapshot of what we go through in the hearing process. But the rates that let's say the costs the company proposed, these are not tariffs. These are rates, and the rates that the commission would come up with in a hearing to look at the tariff might be zero, might be these rates, or might be something different from these rates. Is that correct?
All my experience is before a rate is adopted, we and the commission staff and the company would go through hearings and go into a lot of detail to make sure we were all comfortable with the costs and the rates and what the effect would be. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I believe that's all our questions here now, Officer Wenzel.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Jacobson, Mr. Norris. Staff, who's your spokesperson for today? Mr. Crano?
Yes, Hearing Officer Wenzel, thank you. We at staff don't have a lot to add to our pre-filed comments, so we won't take up everyone's time by going through what we've already filed. I did want to let you know the California Commission did defer their decision on the potential opt-out. Right now it's set for their February 1st agenda, but they could, of course, delay that again. There's not a statutory time frame in which they have to hear that, so they could delay that as far as they wanted to, frankly. But right now, it is set for their February 1st agenda. Also, in regards to a tariff filing that the company's referenced, we would point them to NRS 704-100 sub F, and this would, based on projections at this point anyway, it would have to be an application filing rather than an advice letter, but just allows the parties to go into a little more detail, as Mr. Jacobson was saying. And then, of course, we'll answer any questions the commission might have.
Okay, are there any questions, Mr. Davis or Mr. Shiraz for staff?
I actually have one for Mr. Lopez.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Lopez, if the company were to file a tariff that had proposed opt-out cost rates for those customers who choose to opt out, could those costs be determined outside of a general rate case?
Could they be? Yes. And I guess that's where Mr. Crano was going on some of the rates after that are determined in there. And that's more of a legal question that I can't answer.
From a financial, economic point of view, could you develop costs that accurately reflect the incremental cost of opting out?
I believe we could, yes.
I have no more questions. Hearing Officer Wenzel. Mr. Davis has no questions.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Crano, just generally, in your comments when you talk about the other opt-out provisions that have been adopted by other commissions, or at least, let me strike that, other proposals that have been proposed by other utilities, maybe not actually approved yet. And I wanted to specifically address on page 10 of your comments where you state some additional facts about California, specifically PG&E's program. And I just wanted to clarify what you meant by no exit fees.
Thank you, Hearing Officer. The exit fees...
Can you move your mic really close?
Yeah, I apologize for that.
Thank you.
Exit fees are a term that we used for basically if a opt-out customer ends their service, moves, or for some other reason terminates their service, the exit fees are the cost to go in and take the opt-out meter off and reinstall a smart meter.
Is that the same or different from initial upfront costs that are proposed in the company's comments?
In the company's comments, they include in their upfront costs the exit fees. PG&E had proposed that as well, and the draft order at this point, it hasn't been voted on, but the draft order by Commissioner Peavy, I believe, at the California Commission, excludes those costs.
Excludes the exit fees,
Yeah, exit
but
fees.
not all of the upfront costs?
But not all of the upfront costs, right.
Okay.
That I think is probably why the upfront costs that he recommends in that draft order are significantly lower than than PG&E's recommended upfront costs.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. That's helpful. Okay, that's all the questions from the commission. At this time, we are going to take a break. We will come back on the record at, I think it says 10:23 or so. We're going to come back at 10:35. Actually, maybe we should come back at 10:40, given the number of people in the room. I don't want anybody tripping over each other. Okay, we're in recess.
So
everybody? To rearrange the chairs so that we can get more people in here, so.
Well, what is that benefit us? Everything is